Welcome back to The Conservative. Hi there, I'm Mike Lannon, your host, and glad to have you spend the next 30 minutes with me, and we'll talk very quickly about control. And that's been on my mind for a couple of shows now about the left versus the right. The right believes that, or the conservatives, we believe that control comes within ourselves. We have to learn to have responsibility and accountability to ourselves first, long before government. The reliability on ourselves is very important, better known as self-reliance, long before the government side. On the other side, the left, they believe that the government should be a big chunk of your life, that it is they who should control what it is that you are able to do. And I want to speak specifically of the First and Second Amendment, maybe go deeper than that. But in this show, I want to talk about the First Amendment and let you know how control has begun to be taken away from you without you even knowing about it. And you know, I've talked at great length for many shows about the frog in the pan, and repeat it again here for those who haven't heard or just joining us. There's an old legend about the frog in the pan, and you put the frog in a pan of hot water, of just plain water, and you begin to heat the pan up, and it gets hotter and hotter. The frog has at the beginning the ability to jump out of that pan. It's got the leg power to get up and get out, but it's very soothing and comfortable water, and it just slowly begins to warm up. By the time the water is at the hottest possible point for the frog to not have its legs work, he is begun to be boiled, and there's no way for the frog to get out of the pan. Same thing happens with what is going on in control by the left over what it is that they wish to accomplish. Back in the late 1800s, 1890 to this day, there were a tremendous movement in the world, and in particular here in the United States, but elsewhere, about having a philosophical way of controlling the masses. The largest writer of that known treatise was Karl Marx, okay, and he wrote the Communist Manifesto. And others have written before him. There's always been this desire for that social utopia, and others will write afterwards, because theoretically it sounds awfully good that government can be such that everybody wants nothing and everybody gets everything, and somehow or another we all sit down and get along. Well, that would be certainly on paper, and in a book, the written word would sound awfully good, but that is not the way society has ever functioned, and I don't believe that it ever will, at least not in the near future, which the near future would be 25,650 years, which is the complete cycle of time necessary for us to pass this Earth on its rocket ship ride through space, through the ancient constellations. So we aren't going to see folks get along perfectly in a utopian situation. And we think back at the most ancient texts in the Judeo-Christian text being the Bible and the book of Genesis, and how it was that Adam and Eve didn't necessarily get along. They had that flaw, the eating of the apple and the destruction thereafter of Eden and their expulsion from it in the first sin. And of course, shortly thereafter, if you remember the biblical story, Cain kills his brother Abel because he's jealous over the fact that Abel's animal sacrifices of greater nature than his, which was that of the farmer. All great stories that tell you about the commonality between those years ago, 8,000 years, probably that story is old, 8,000 years down to today, hasn't changed much. Those biblical stories lay out the way in which people actually psychologically react to each other. And so we come now to control that the left would like us to have. And the first thing they do is take the First Amendment and have begun to slowly cook the frog and talk about not having free speech. In this country today, a conservative, my show's not big enough to have people go after it, at least not that I'm aware of. The larger conservative voices are being shut down now by people that own chunks of the left, and in particular is being investigated and will be investigated even more so, but Google, Twitter, Facebook, the social media sites seem to have turned very much towards the left and are very much censoring what the right would want to say. That is that slow cooking of the frog. If you only hear the side that's called the left, the large government side, then in time that's all you're going to hear, and therefore you will think that that is the only way to survive. That was true up to 245 years ago. The only side that was ever heard was the side of the dictator, the side of the king. The side called the American Constitution, the side called, let's see if men can govern themselves without a king, without a dictator. Let's see if men can create their own lives and their own livelihoods and have it governed by men and women. That's the United States Constitution. So speech on the left now is the speech that they want to hear. That's what you hear from this Antifa group and all the other groups that are suppressing the right to step up and speak a different approach to whatever it is that we would like to discuss. And that becomes a huge problem because you don't explore any impasses there. And even though we try to pay attention to the Constitution and those first 5 pieces of the First Amendment, speech is being slowly shut down. And therefore your opportunity to present both sides of a situation, both sides of a political view, are candidly at risk. And if you can't, as a citizen of the United States, as Ben Franklin very nicely voiced, discern what is being said both left and right because you don't have enough information in front of you because it's being suppressed or absolutely not, or absolutely being forbidden to be given to you, then that is big control of big government, making sure that the socialist view, the communist view is the only thing heard. So in the communist countries, such as Russia, such as China, such as Venezuela, the only uncontrolled would be underground right now because those media sources, the televisions, the radios, the newspapers, the printed press, that's all controlled by the government. So either you're saying what they want you to say or it's not published. And so let's say I have 100 magazines, go out to a community of 100, and all they read is what the government wants you to read. Well, after time, that's all you know to believe. So a little bit of that can change if we have the wonderful power of the internet, where you can get secretively in those 3 countries I just mentioned, secretively get outside information that might keep your sense of balance between the right and the left, and in particular the importance of the middle, that might keep you out of the lockstep control that the left would want you to have. And you can see that that's coming very quickly. And if you don't see that, then you're not watching the news very much, and you're not listening to the radio very much, you're not reading any newspapers or magazines, and you're not paying attention to what is actually going. So therefore you're the frog in the pan that is getting very, very hot, and time will tell now whether or not you're going to have enough time when the pan gets so hot that you can't get out, and that you then can't make any kind of a change, and you're dead in the water. So that's what we mean by the frog in the pan and what's going on in the First Amendment in speech. If you're listening carefully, you're finding out that Google, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, those are all beginning to control what you see, what you hear, what you're able to discern from, because they are suppressing voices and views that are completely opposite of what they believe politically is correct. Now, all four owners of that media have denied such things, but they're being investigated right now. The United States Congress has begun to open the doors for investigation, the highest one being perhaps the breakup of Google, because it's become such a large monopoly. Those aren't good places to be either, but it's not a good place to be investigated right now by either side of Congress, because it's basically a do-nothing Congress, a do-nothing Senate, a do-nothing government, which is good from the right-hand side of things, because most of us that go very far to the right, the libertarian and the anarchists, the ones who prefer no government at all, they would all be on the right-hand side of that political spectrum. A do-nothing government is a good government because it does nothing. Most of us don't believe that. Most of us believe that you need to have a government that is more conservative than liberal, and more in the middle to accomplishing things that are meaningful to all Americans. That's what the government was really founded for, but it was not founded to be the giveaway state, or the state that takes away from those who are willing to work harder than those who don't, the takers and the makers. The makers deserve their profit. And I have never been able to figure out why in the world, if I make $1 billion, that the next guy next to me, who hasn't made more than a dime, deserves a piece of my billion. Just the way it is. That's the free enterprise capitalistic system. All other systems in this world have failed. And we can go down the list and see the Soviet Union in my lifetime failed miserably. It's actually Russian government's economy is in deep trouble right now. So is the Chinese government economy in deep trouble. We have put some real pressure there on the Chinese government, and the people on the left, they feel that we shouldn't be putting so much pressure on because it's going to affect us. Well, that remains to be seen, because right now it has affected us big time. You don't realize it because the frog is boiling slowly. And the Chinese have been stealing our intellectual property, and also stealing our wealth by refusing to allow us to sell goods to their nation without huge tariffs. And our nation has, quite frankly, stupidly allowed them to send their Chinese products in here with no tariffs, so they can sell underprice any American good. And therefore, which one are you going to buy? You don't know any better, so you buy a belt that's made in China, and don't realize that that belt's not going to last you probably a year by the way it's been manufactured. I've had a couple of those belts, versus a belt that's made in America that has got good solid leather behind it and doesn't fall apart. But in order for the leather manufacturer of belts to survive, they have to compete against a belt that's coming to us from China for $1, and the only way that they can manufacture in America that same belt with the quality that an American will put into it is $5. I mean, that's the belts are probably 3 times that in price, but you get the picture of what I'm talking about. You're probably going to buy that which cost $1 versus that which cost $5, despite the fact that it hurts an American who is trying to make a living by manufacturing the product in America. So those become serious, serious problems in the world of free speech. And the number one piece of the First Amendment, I started with free speech because that is under major attack. The control of religion is even bigger than that, because the control of religion is in a mindset. And we have, excuse me, we have people that don't bother to go to church anymore because it's a joke, because they don't believe. They've been told by the secular left that it's not important. President Obama said that when he was talking about those who believe in the Bible and believe in church and these kinds of things. That's exactly what Nikita Khrushchev said, The communists believe that we have to destroy the mindset of the religious folks in order to take over the nation. We have to make sure that people don't believe in a God, and the God becomes government. You can read Karl Marx, you can read Lenin, you can read Nikita Khrushchev, and you can read Putin, and you can see that all of these guys believe that the end of religion as we know it, a belief in God, a belief in Christianity, has got to come to an end in order for us to become a socialistic nation. Well, we're rapidly going that way, and we find that very few people are going to church, and it's primarily because they believe it's not necessary. I think if I were really to research this very, very carefully, I would find that the majority of people that answer the Gallup polls on why they don't go to religion or go to church is not because they don't believe in a God, it's because the church isn't relevant anymore, and so therefore biblically they have no clue about what the word religion means, what the word community means, and so therefore we've now got first two of the five original founding father tenets in the First Amendment under tremendous attack and on their way to the slow frog in the pan being destroyed. So if I can destroy religion and not have religion, then there would be no need to have it protected under the First Amendment. If I can destroy speech and only have government control it, then I don't need to have that also in the First Amendment. So slowly but surely I can destroy the first two tenets of the First Amendment. Now the third one, the only constitutionally approved business that is allowed to have constitutional protection, is the press. That too is under tremendous attack from the press itself. The press is very, very much all left. It's all to the left of center, and we're finding out more and more that the left, for many, many of the major networks, is a talking, walking element of the left. Now, that doesn't mean it's totally supportive of the Democratic Party, but it does mean that it is more supportive of the Democratic Party than it is of anybody that is thinking to the right. And all you have to do is watch carefully the news at night and see what is reported and what is not reported. And I could give you many, many examples, but I challenge you to go and start yourself to find out what you can ascertain and then discern about what is being told and what is not being told. And very, very important, because if you're not being told facts on the right and facts on the left, how do you make an intelligent decision on what you believe that you will follow? If you don't know enough about what the people on the right, the conservatives, believe, and you only believe what the left is telling you to believe, then there's no way that you can make an intelligent decision on what's going on in the political world or in the historical world or in the other part of the world. So that becomes a very, very important part of the control that we first started this show with. So we've basically started to talk very clearly now about the three pieces of the First Amendment and how the left, believing in large government, believes that if we can destroy religion and have you not go to your church, is going to begin to win the battle, and the frog gets warmer in the pan. They're going to also destroy that free speech, and therefore by telling you that you must sit down, shut up, or get out, then that is certainly one of the 13 principles of Saul Alinsky, the left's talking points on how to destroy the political opponent. That is certainly something that you should read to find out what's going on, and the bullet points, the recipe book used by the left, consistently used by the left in order to destroy the opposition. So that's very important that you know that that is actually happening. So those first three tenets are certainly on the chopping block and getting chopped away at by the left's very sharp axe, and to chip away at it. Now, you know, I said this started in the late 1800s, shortly after the Civil War, when these kind of left-sided movements really started to get some traction, and the progressives began to really push for a more socialistic nation, one that is one for all for one, which doesn't work. But it started way back then, and they are willing to go slowly as progressives to get to where they want to go. That's why you don't see these major changes taking place in the frog pan quickly. It's a slow cook of the water, so that I can wait 100, 200 years to get to my ultimate outcome. And that outcome is to destroy 245 years of American history. The greatest nation that's ever been allowed to rise up and be a constitutional nation, run by mankind versus run by a king or a dictator, or run by a party, a single party, which is not all for one, one for all. It's all for the ones that are there. It's all for the elite, okay? So that being said, we know that we have to be very, very careful in order to not have our country destroyed, because if I can, over time, 10-year blocks, 20-year blocks, just chip away at what you've got to offer as a free nation, and you, me, sit at home and do nothing, we become bumps on the log, and we refuse to look at the left or the right and the middle and what's being said there and make our own decision, and we just do lockstep, which quite frankly is what the Democratic Party does. They're lockstep to the bullet points. They are in the state of Vermont, there's no question about it. How dare anyone in this state have a different opinion at the legislative branch of government? And we're getting fewer and fewer people there that are from the right being allowed to get elected. They're not being elected because more and more people, quite frankly, are listening only to one side of that story, and they figure that, okay, health care for all is a great thing. Right, it is, but who's going to pay for it? Free education for all with the forgiveness of college debt is a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing for everybody. Who's going to pay for it? It's great to have the most powerful roads in the on the highways in Vermont. Right, who's going to pay for them? Well, you find that out when you compare roads and you don't look at health care and you don't look at the educational costs. Roads, government does not do a great job of them. We have a tremendous amount of road repair necessary, better known at the federal level as infrastructure. Vermont, we have infrastructure issues. Who's going to pay for it? That becomes a problem. And when you have a state that has about 630,000 people in the state, and approximately 200,000 are paying some form of a tax, that could be a little high, that 200,000 number, but let's say it's 200,000. That's a lot of money per 200,000 to pay for 650,000 folks, okay? So who's going to pay for it is the big question. We on the right question that all the time, because the more and more we depend upon self-reliance, that means ourselves first versus the government, the better off we believe you would be on the right. I don't believe that somebody should be able to come down to my house and take a piece of my $10. Tried an experiment the other day that I think is a good one. You can try this on your own children. If you've got 2 or 3 children in the house, take one of the child and have them do the chores. Have them do the chores for the week. And maybe just washing dishes or making a bed or picking up things around the house. Pay that child $10. Then bring the other 2 children in the room. Make sure that the $10 that you give to the first child is in dollar bills. Look at the other 2 children and take $8 away from child number 1 and split that up, $4 for child 2 and $4 for child 3. They didn't do anything, but you're going to give them $4 each, and you're going to leave the child that did all the work with $2. That doesn't make sense. Now, it doesn't work that way, quite frankly, with the government method, but in reality it really does. You might not give the children 4 and 4. You might allow that child that did all the work, you might allow them to have 4, and the other two split $350 each. You know, whatever it be, you're taking from the guy that did all the work and deserve to have the earned profit from all that work, and now you're taking it and dividing it up amongst the children that did nothing. You're going to find out in a hurry that the child that did all the work isn't going to do that work anymore. You're going to find out in a hurry that he's going to object in a hurry that his $10 in wages has now been chopped up and given away to those who don't believe in doing the work, or weren't even asked to do the work, or didn't step forward to do the work. Doesn't matter. Socialism is just basically exactly what I just presented to you. Communism the same way, except in communism, all three folks get the same amount of money, whether they do anything or not. Oh, gee, sounds like the guy that was on the TV the other day that said he's going to find families and give them everyone $1,000 a month for 12 months. Well, that's a little bit of a change from his original position, which was to give every family in America $1,000 a month for the rest of their lives to keep everything equitable across the thing. So we're going to give everybody in America $12,000. Well, let's see how that's going to work. Not very well, because where is that $12,000 going to be coming from? Someone that's done all the work and done all the earning. Why would I go out and do all the work and do all the earning if I'm going to have it taken away and given away to someone else? So the last principles that I want to talk about are the right to grieve and the right to assemble. More and more people in America are not being allowed to assemble, and if they are, it's the left that's attacking them. You can look at the news, that which is reported, and you will find out that there are groups on the left that are attacking people that dare to march on the right. It's crazy, but that's what's going on. And then the right to grieve. Well, we have a very strange court system right now, and we can't really grieve. We have the right to watch carefully those who have enough wealth and enough powerful political position to literally get away with all kinds of things that you and I, who do not have the same political money or power, are going to jail for. That is a system that is corrupt and needs to be stopped. But that's the right to assemble and the right to grieve. And the final right that is under tremendous attack, that has absolutely nothing to do with what's actually happening, and that is the right to bear arms, the gun rights. You heard the other day one of the candidates declare that, excuse my French, hell yes, we're coming after your AR-K4s and all the other kinds of weapons that have numbers of bullets and bullets. Stop and think about the number of people that have guns in this country. It's the largest nation with guns in the home of any other nation in the world. We set that up as a Second Amendment because we did not want to ever have the opportunity for the government to take us over, or two, some other foreign government to be able to come here and not have a fight on their hands. Japanese wouldn't attack America just because of that reason. They knew that everybody had a gun, and that was going to make a really difficult situation for them. Just saying. So the majority of people that own guns are not out shooting anybody. And quite frankly, if I don't have a gun, I can build a bomb. If I don't have a bomb, I can build a knife. If I don't have one, I can use a car. If I'm that kind of a person, hell-bent on destroying the lives of innocent folks in front of me, then I'm just going to go find that soft target and I can take it out with an automobile. What are we going to do, ban automobiles? Probably not. Probably talk about it if we start having people do this. Knives, poison, pure hands around people's necks. What are we going to do? We have a culture right now that allows for people to not believe in the first principle, religion. Jesus, who is the founding member of Christianity, basically said, if you stop and think, love thy neighbor as you would love thyself. These people that are going out and shooting people aren't following that principle. How are they loving their neighbor if they're willing to shoot them up? That's what I mean by the destruction of religion. If people aren't talking about these moral values that are based in Judeo-Christian conversation, then we've got a disaster on our hands. Well, I can see that we've run out of time, and I was able to get in the first two amendments and the positive approach and the differences between what the left thinks and the right thinks. Start being a discerner. Look at both sides. Don't just listen to me. Go find out for yourself. See you next time. Bye now.